Tonight, Donald Trump is one step closer to making the biggest decision of his campaign to date. That would be selecting a running mate.
He's reportedly narrowed his choices down to the final two. KCAL 9 political reporter Bryan shows us who could be the likely candidate for vice president on the Republican ticket. Dave?
Yeah, we think we know who the two are. In fact, one of them was talking about it tonight. We're going to see that in just a moment. Tonight, it appears Donald Trump has reduced the field of potential running mates down to two. That's the word tonight from one of the contenders, from the candidate's son, and even from Donald Trump himself. The Donald Trump Veep stakes was rushing toward a finale as he talked with three candidates who appeared to be the finalists. But now it appears it's down to two.
I'm narrowing it down. I mean, I'm at three, potentially four. But in my own mind, I probably am thinking about two.
Former House Speaker Newt Gingrich told Sean Hannity on Fox News after his meeting with Trump on Wednesday, he was left with the impression that it's down to him and Indiana Governor Mike Pence.
I think Trump has a tough call because he's got two really good but really different choices. And I think it'll be interesting to see. You know, I'm one of the people who will be sitting by the phone waiting tomorrow to see what he decides. I suspect sometime tomorrow that Mike and I will both get phone calls, and one of us will be packing our bags to go to New York, and the other one will be going to watch it on TV.
Trump's son, Eric, confirmed Gingrich's impression that his father has whittled down the field to the final two.
He narrowed that list down pretty quickly to 10, and then it went to kind of 5, and now he's down to a couple, and the decision hasn't been made, but I mean, he's really considering a couple people, and I think they're exceptional.
Trump flew his children in for a breakfast meeting with Pence at the governor's mansion.
I'll be supporting his choice very strongly, and we'll just let the future take care of itself.
Trump then left for downtown Indianapolis to conduct more discussions about his running mate as the vice presidential vetting process draws to a close. First, Gingrich, who retired from Congress in 1999 and ran for president himself 4 years ago. He's been advising Trump, whom he says is leading a movement of historical significance. Trump also met with Alabama Senator Jeff Sessions, who's not in the running for Veep, but is a close advisor to Trump. And Trump spoke on the telephone with New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, who chairs the Trump transition team, but now appears to be out of the running for vice president on the ticket. Pence is a devout evangelical Christian and a fiscal conservative who served 6 terms in Congress. This is what he had to say about his meeting with Trump.
Nothing was offered, nothing was accepted, but we had a great conversation about the country.
Pence campaigned with Trump at an Indiana rally on Tuesday night after a fundraiser that Pence organized for Trump that raised about $1 million. Trump was impressed.
You'll be calling up Mike Pence. I don't know whether he's going to be your governor or your vice president. Who the hell knows?
Donald Trump's campaign adds up to an ugly, dangerous message to America.
Hillary Clinton, speaking in Illinois, called Trump a threat to democracy who exploits people's fears and is vindictive with his critics.
Imagine if he had not just Twitter and cable news to go after his critics and opponents, but also the IRS, or for that matter, our entire military.
But a new poll shows Trump now with a small lead or tied in 3 key battleground states, Florida, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. And on the key issue of honesty and trustworthiness, the poll shows Trump holding a double-digit lead in those states. Apparently the fallout from FBI testimony about Clinton's private email server when she was Secretary of State. But there was better news for her in another new poll, which showed her leading now in Iowa by 3 and in Pennsylvania by 9. So Donald Trump is now scheduled to make his announcement about his running mate on Friday morning in New York at 8 a.m. Pacific time. That means the chosen one will find out tomorrow in time to fly to New York, right?
Yeah, right. So, Dave, do the poll numbers, do you think they suggest that the email controversy for Clinton is going to be a major factor? And if so, what does this mean for Clinton?
Well, it's hard to know whether those numbers will be sustained, for all these months. The Clinton email server impact right now is considerable. In the Florida poll, for example, she dropped 8 points in the past month and Trump gained 3 points. That's an 11-point shift in 30 days. Not good news for Clinton, but it could have been worse. The recent police shootings and race relations debates have pushed the emails out of the headlines now, and it's still a long way to go until November. And voters have short memories in most cases. So today's numbers may not mean much on Election Day. And there could be lots of other developing issues impacting the outcome between now and then. Lena?